be wiser as an educated advisor. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, the Tax Bracket Racket, part 3 in our series on Index Universal Life Insurance. All here on Let's Get Down to Business.
I've talked about Social Security and the alternative minimum tax. Social Security, interesting. I'm shocked always when I look at the Social Security and I go to this page and I say, has anybody seen the single page worksheet so you can find out if you have to pay taxes on your Social Security? Clients don't know it. 90% of the advisor community doesn't know it. The insurance agent doesn't know it. People who are in what I would call niche markets like Medicare, they don't know it. This page is something that if you're going to be around, if I was going to start all over again in my career, this is one of the top tax issues I'd learn cold. It's one page, easy to understand. Almost every single major player in tax has their own calculator out on the web. You could get anybody and figure it out yourself, and they'll walk you through it. This is not hard, but you should start to understand this. And why? Because IUL, withdrawals to basis, and policy loans to gain never show up on the provisional income test on Social Security. So our income is never going to tax your Social Security benefits. Did you get that? Because that, to me, is an important part of planning. Now, qualified plans. Think about this. Everybody thinks that when I'm in a 401k, let's say you're in a 401k today and you say, Steve, I get a deduction. Well, you do on the federal level and in some state, depends on your state. But you're not getting your Social Security reduced. You're not getting your unemployment insurance reduced. FICA FUTA SUTA is still the same whether you deduct $20,000 or you deduct $1,000. It's going to stay the same because it's based on your gross income. Then there's two things. Think about this. About 15 years ago, I only worried as a young planner, well, I don't know about young, but a planner, that when I looked at somebody's taxes, I just looked at page 1, line 31, last line on the tax form, and I said, hey, that's what I have to deal with, but not any longer. I got to turn to page 2, and there's this thing called modified adjusted gross. Not only do I have adjusted gross income, now I have it modified, and there's 6 to 7 different modifications depending upon what kind of income you're generating. So now, the higher up the food chain the client is on income, I got to go to the modified second page of the contract to kind of look and see what's really going on. Now, remember, why do I bring this up? Because it's not how much I make in retirement. My client came to me and said, Steve, I have $1.1 million in my 401k. And I said, no, you don't. He goes, well, yes, I do. No, you don't. You may have $1.1 million on paper. You may have $1.1 million actually in the accounts. But the moment you trigger your required minimum distributions, if you wait that long, to age 70, about a third of it, and part of that's going to be your Social Security tax, is going to be taken off the table. So you need to start thinking, I don't have 1.1 to live on, I got about 700 grand to live on. Because I have to pay taxes on all this. Every time I bring this to a client, they all freak out. How did you not know that? How did somebody not tell you, hey, remember, all qualified plan money is going to be ordinary income tax, and there's no basis. And by the way, if you stall like I'm doing, at 70 and a half, they're going to put a gun to our head and say you need to trigger and start taking money out of it. And they'll tell you exactly how much the minimum you have to take out. So it's really, really, really important. It's not how much money I make, how much can I keep, right? How much do I get to put in my pocket? And I want to keep talking about this all the time. This is why these areas like Index Universal Life, used for income, if it's done right, it is unbelievable. And it can really give you an internal rate of return during your retirement. And you won't have to worry about sweating bullets using IUL for income because we have no RMD regulations. Here are the 4 things that everybody always asks me. Don't memorize everything in the marketplace that causes taxes in retirement. Just memorize the 4 that don't, right? I think that's the way to go. First of all, HSA. If I was a young person again, I would be loading my HSA before I ever loaded anything else. Why? Fully deductible. You can use the money anytime. You don't have to wait till 59 and a half. As long as it's coming out for medical approved premiums or medical approved expenses, you can use it all day long. It's a golden opportunity. All my children are millennials. They're all maxing their HSAs before they're maxing their 401k except for the match. Why? Because of the thing I just told you. I can get to it at any time. Think you're not going to have medical problems? Think again. Think you're going to be living because you got great diet, great exercise, and you'll never have medical issues? Think again. Even if you make it all the way out to retirement, you're going to start spending money in your golden years on medical issues. It's fully deductible. The money comes out free. There's nothing in the code that looks great. And by the way, the income never shows up on the provisional income test for Social Security. Golden. Roth IRAs. Now, most Americans are not in a high tax bracket. So the only reason you should be in a 401k is because your employer matches your contribution. That's it. If they don't match it, I say get out and fully fund your Roth after you do your HSA, right? That money's going to come out free. Roth income does not show up on Social Security. So the Roth would be free, and your Social Security might even be free too if you have enough free things like HSA accounts and Roth IRAs. Heck, home equity conversion mortgage. You know about it because the television says it's reverse mortgage. You know, you get income off loans off your home. But it has several different items. You could take income tax-free, won't show up on provisional income test. You could buy a home with Heckham for half of its value down. And you could also create what's called an appreciating line of credit. Instead of having the traditional credit you probably have for owning a home now, under the HELOC regulations, you can do this when you turn 62. You could actually take an appreciating line of credit that actually increases when you don't use it. I love that, right? Didn't use it, didn't need it, didn't have a necessity for extra money. Oh, my account keeps going up. I love things like that. And the last one, of course, cash value life insurance policy loans. Now, keep in mind, this could be whole life, participating whole life. This could be universal life. This could be index universal life. And for you who have a little bit more risk tolerance, it could be variable universal life. Those are the four chassis. I'll get into that in a little bit. Under current law, the withdrawals of basis and or the collateralized policy loans of gain from a non-qualified endowment contract kept in force for the life of the policy insured. By the way, I didn't say owner, did I? The policy insured. The owner could be somebody else. But the insured is the person I'm watching. As long as that policy is kept in force while they're alive, there is no taxable event on the withdrawals and the policy loans. Did you get that? And as I said before earlier, it doesn't show up on your provisional income test, therefore it doesn't push your Social Security into taxation. Some other income you might have will, some other asset maybe, but not IUL or any of the TAMRA approved chassis that I just mentioned. Okay, qualified defined contribution plans work well if you're in a monster bracket. I got a guy that's in a high bracket. He needs every deduction he can take. He's taking the deduction. He's also getting an employer match. He's taking the employer match. But if I don't have a high tax bracket, if I don't get match, I have no reason to be in anything ERISA. ERISA is the governing body that looks at 403Bs for teachers, 401Ks for us who are out in the public domain, defined benefit plans for military and government people. This is all in that area. And I say, if you're not in a high tax bracket and you're not getting a match, I don't know why we're in it. You're just putting yourself under regulations that, by the way, last till you're 59 and a half. And I can tell you, when I was young in my 20s, 59 and a half looked like eternity. I mean, think about it. So the vast number of 401k participants aren't in a high bracket, and many of them aren't receiving an actual matching contribution. And think about it, the new tax code, we have no exemptions any longer. Boy, you know what? I was a young father. When you have 4 kids, right? You have 4 kids and your wife. Back in the day, you got $2-3 grand for every person in your family. That was golden. I mean, your first 18-20 grand was just because you had your wife, and your kids, right? That was great. But the exemptions are gone. But check it out. The new standard deduction for married is $24,000. So that means the first $24,000 is you take income against $24,000. It's negating your income, whether it's wages, whether it's retirement income. That's great. And if you're a senior over 65, I get another $1,600. It's just, this is what I say, the first $27,000 under the code today for seniors is pretty much free. So when you're looking at it, look at these tax brackets. These are the new ones for 2019. Most Americans don't rise to the level of the third level at $22,000. When you look at this and you say, that chart, nobody that I know, and maybe this is your practice, is really in the last 3 areas. Well, that means you're not dealing with affluent people. That's okay. But that means that people that you're dealing with really shouldn't be in qualified plans unless they're getting a match. So always look at this bracket. Find out what your client's really paying. Remember, we are in what's called a marginally progressive tax bracket. The more you make, they start dinging your higher your income as you get higher up these brackets. So our game is always, how low can I get to the lowest bracket so I pay the least amount?
Don't forget to watch our next segment, All Financial Products Have Expenses, Part 4 in our series on Index Universal Life Insurance. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or your compliance officer. And don't forget, you can subscribe to my consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Daily content that you can post on your website, social media accounts, and database distribution. I'm Steve Savant. Thanks for watching.